Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this live event. And I have the pleasure to have with me Professor Keld Jensen. We will give him an opportunity to introduce himself in a moment. But first of all, we want to know a bit more about you, the audience. And of course, the warm welcome goes not only to the people that are joining us live, but also to the people that will be watching the recording of this event. So, hello, everyone. How about telling us a bit more from where you're joining, right? Because it is quite late for Asia and Australia, but maybe we're still gonna get someone that is late night birds who will still join us. So let us know from where you're joining. That will be great to connect with people from different continents, different countries. So, okay, good. We have somebody from Early Bird from California, US. Then we have Oslo. Very good. Then well, so many names going on. It goes very fast. We have Germany. We have Spain, France, Bosnia Herzegovina, Ghana, Jordan. So we have already 4 continents: India, Egypt. Okay, amazing. So very broad audience joining us from different places. And how about finding out more about our guest from today? Keld, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Giuseppe. Thank you for having me. Well, the short version is that my world is negotiation. I live and breathe negotiation. I've done it most of my life, and professionally since 1998, I've been advising, training, and running workshops and doing keynotes on negotiation globally. Besides that, very briefly, I'm a professor at 4 different universities, both here in North America and Europe, where I lecture on EMBA programs on negotiation. I'm a keynote speaker, as I mentioned earlier. I speak globally at 40, 50 conferences, keynotes annually. I run workshops for companies and governments around the world, and I'm also an advisor on the topic of negotiation. And last but not least, I'm an author. I have published with the newest one coming out here in October, 25 books on negotiation and related communication worldwide. So anyway, thank you for having me here today, Giuseppe.
Fantastic. By the way, so many books. We'll come back on the topic of books in a moment, but let's first, start with, ChatGPT, right? Because you have done intensive research on the use of ChatGPT and negotiation. Could you share some findings with our audience?
Oh, absolutely. It was like the perfect cocktail for me because before I went into the world of negotiation, I was actually in tech industry. I was the CEO of a public company in Stockholm, in Sweden, within technology. So I always have this love of technology. And now having the opportunity of combining technology with AI and negotiation is like the perfect fit for me. So when ChatGPT came out, I dived right in and started doing research on how can we use AI at this early moment? How can we use ChatGPT? Now, I know this show here is about ChatGPT. I'm not sponsored by ChatGPT, so it could be Google Bard or whatever other solution that is coming out. But when we're talking AI in general, it's really interesting to study the use of technology. And the reason, Giuseppe, I'm very interested in this is actually, and now I'm saying something that might provoke some people or surprise some people. I don't really think we have seriously developed negotiation since 1773. I think we really basically are negotiating more or less the same way. Now, we have evolved because, for instance, we can negotiate online, we can negotiate by email, and we have technology to support our negotiation, but our mentality around negotiation haven't really evolved a lot. We're still sitting there in the ditches and fighting each other and a lot of zero-sum games going on. So when something like ChatGPT came out, I was actually thinking this might be the biggest revolution for negotiation we've ever seen, because now we have the opportunity of electrifying negotiation, putting some technology in that can actually assist us in becoming better. So anyway, back to your question, Giuseppe. Together with World Commerce and Contracting, which is a huge nonprofit organization with 80,000 members globally within contracting, legal, procurement, sales, what have you, we started a research within AI actually 2 years ago before ChatGPT. And when ChatGPT came out, we dived in and started doing a lot of tests where we had teams without the use of ChatGPT negotiating with a counterpart with ChatGPT. We had teams where both sides were using ChatGPT, and we have teams just to compare where none were using ChatGPT. I had written a very simple simulation for them. They all had the same time to prepare, 2 hours. Then they had half an hour to conduct this negotiation. And we recorded everything, obviously. And we've been looking at all these negotiations. And the great thing, Giuseppe, just back to our audience today that is truly global, it was, and still is, because we're still running this test, it is a global audience. We're people from Africa, Asia, Europe, North America, South America, you name it, everybody is there. And one big conclusion, let me just reveal that immediately, is that you get a better negotiation with the use of AI. And what do I mean by a better negotiation? Well, we could clearly see that negotiators who embraced and knew how to use ChatGPT were better prepared. They had a better structure. They identified the values in negotiation, and they actually concluded negotiation way before time. Now, compare that to those negotiators who didn't use ChatGPT whatsoever. They never managed to reach a deal within the time because people talk too much and they put too much emotions in stuff and they start drifting off in other directions. So they're wasting time. They never utilize the full potential of the value. And quite often, and more so than when they were negotiating with the use of ChatGPT, they ended up in more positional negotiation compared to those using ChatGPT that has a tendency to move into more collaborative negotiation. And those of you who already been playing around with ChatGPT and using it to create a structure around negotiation and prepare, you might already know that ChatGPT, and this is what I love, obviously, where I'm coming from, ChatGPT have a tendency to promote more collaborative negotiation, just a tiny bit more than positional negotiation. Because we have some teams who really try to provoke ChatGPT by saying, well, we want to be aggressive and more combative, and we want to challenge the counterpart. And ChatGPT is very carefully coming out suggesting alternative route. Shouldn't we, instead of being combative and aggressive, ask a question? Shouldn't we do this and shouldn't we do that? So anyway, sorry, that was a long answer to you, Seb, but the answer to your question is ChatGPT made the actually negotiators better and created a better negotiations.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. And by the way, when you say that the people using ChatGPT, are you only talking about using ChatGPT before the negotiation, or they were also using it during the negotiation?
That's a great question, Giuseppe, because this is actually very important. Because what we saw clearly that those teams utilizing ChatGPT during their actually preparation did really well. Because it takes time utilizing ChatGPT. Those teams utilizing ChatGPT during negotiation admitted that that was a tough exercise because it is very challenging both running the negotiation and then on the side sitting there feeding ChatGPT with information at the same time. So in general, they were doing both. What I can tell you is that the teams and all the teams we were running this test with was a team of 2 individuals. And those teams who did really well, just like if you are not using ChatGPT, those teams who did really well had divided the roles very clearly. So one was conducting the actual negotiation, being the head of the negotiation team, and his or her assistant, if we can call it that, was working ChatGPT. And that is almost a full-time occupation in a negotiation, just working ChatGPT. Now, do you know what, Giuseppe, but what was fun? The clever ones, do you know what they did? They actually took my simulation, uploaded the whole thing to ChatGPT and just asked ChatGPT to analyze that simulation, give me question, give me answers on what I should prepare on, give me focus on what variables that we should identify, and give me some leads on where the value might be. So I wouldn't even call that cheating. That's just being smart because that's what you're supposed to do. Now, I just want to share one warning though, and that is, which is, I guess, kind of obvious to everybody. Don't ever, and I just repeat that, don't ever upload anything confidential to ChatGPT. Because I think the answer at this point, we don't know where it ends up, right? Now, ChatGPT, obviously, as we all know, is not like Google. So you can't just go in there and search for some specific information, and then you'll get it because somebody else uploaded a confidential contract. But besides that, a general rule that I want to share with everybody, obviously, remove every piece of confidential information you may have. If you, for instance, upload a contract, that I would advise you to do before any negotiation.
Fantastic, fantastic. That's I think it's good that you mentioned also the topic of the ethics and making sure, let's say, that we are careful with the confidentiality kind of element. Now, another element which I know that is one of your area of expertise is trust. You know, is one of the important topics you often publish on this topic. Trust and artificial intelligence in negotiation. What's your take on that?
That's another great question, Giuseppe. Well, first and foremost, let me take a step back. Trust in my world is essential to utilize the true value in negotiation. I don't want to bore anybody, but just very short. We have a concept called negoeconomics, which is basically just negotiation economics. And it's a mathematical award-winning model that shows that up to 42% of the value in a negotiation is often not realized. That means the two parties can reach an agreement, sign the contract, leave the conference room, not being aware that up to 42% is still lying on the table. This mathematical model is actually very simple because it's basically just the asymmetric value between your cost and my value, or my cost and your value. Now, one of the very important ingredients to make this happen is trust and transparency. If we don't have trust and transparency, we cannot identify this value. I'm mentioning this because ChatGPT knows my philosophy of negoeconomics, knows my philosophy of smartmanship. So you can actually just type in these words and let ChatGPT look for potential areas where you could generate value in smartmanship. Now, again, back to what I said, if we don't have trust, it is not going to work out. And I think, Giuseppe, you are a professional, and I think you and I can agree that trust is not necessarily an easy thing in negotiation, is it? It's not like you and I are going into a conference room, then we're shaking hands, and then I said, Giuseppe, I would like to have trust and transparency and openness. And then you said, that's cool, Kel, I want that too. Let's do it. I mean, very often trust is not coming just from word itself, it's coming from action. So what we actually found, back to our study with ChatGPT, funny enough, is that the parties where both sides were using ChatGPT had a tendency to be more open, more honest, and more trustworthy. And the reason for this is it's kind of easier when you know what's going on, when you know all the variables, and when you even have prepared yourself really well. You have all the questions, you have all the variables, you know how to identify the approach. And one of the things that we recommend our clients and students to do already today is having ChatGPT assist you in creating a negotiation strategy. Now, let's ask our audience right now, Giuseppe. Obviously, I can't see them, but everybody, please raise your hand if you have an official negotiation strategy in your company. Right. I bet you, Giuseppe, out of how many that are online right now, I bet you that less than 2, 3, 4% will raise their hand. And half of them that are raising their hand are wrong. It's actually not a strategy they think they're having. It's just a method on how to negotiate. So one of the things that is really crucial and what ChatGPT can help you with is actually define a strategy. We need a strategy even before we step into a negotiation. And trust, if you believe in trust, should be part of that. Now, again, I'm talking too much, but let me just wrap up talking about trust by saying what we know as well is that if we have a high level of trust, and listen carefully, if we have a high level of trust in any kind of collaboration, we reduce our transactional cost and improve the profit for everybody involved, right? But if the trust is low, we also know our transactional cost will go sky high and profit will decline. So trust is actually a monetary value. And I've actually renamed it into trust currency, just put the two words trust and currency together because that is what it really is. So it makes sense working with trust, and it makes sense using ChatGPT as well because ChatGPT can actually work around trust as well.
Wow. Okay, fantastic. By the way, glad to see a few people replying to the comments from Keld about the strategy. I have about 25 strategies. We have different strategies for different situations. The strategy have to be contingent. So we do have that. We have a person commenting on the point of strategy. By the way, this is your event, so do ask the question that you want, and we will be pleased to address them. And we'll start with just one question. Maybe a quick point for the people that are interested in negotiation overall. I do run live events like this one on a regular basis. I just want you to be aware about the next one, the impact of emotions in negotiation. This time we're talking about artificial intelligence. Will change a bit register in October. We'll be talking about emotions in negotiation. So what we are going to do, we're going to put the title of the event and the link on the chat, so that in case you're interested, on the 3rd of October at 1 o'clock Central European time, so it may be difficult for the people in California, but it may be good for others. So, do like, you may want to sign up to the event to discover some more. Now, let's go to one of the questions that we have an interesting question from Asim. Can you tell about the challenges you faced after involving ChatGPT, except confidentiality?
Yeah. Lovely question. I would love to answer that. One of the challenges we have experienced is that, and listen carefully, because this is actually a very important finding as well. If you are an untrained, unskilled, uneducated negotiator, using ChatGPT is deadly. It's basically like putting a driver into a car and they don't have a driver's license and they don't know how to drive that car. It's going to end terribly. And the same thing goes with ChatGPT. We have a saying, crap in, crap out. So if you don't know how to ask the right questions, if you don't know how to prompt ChatGPT correctly, if you don't know what negotiation is all about, if you don't know your strategy, if you don't know whether you want to be back to open or closed, if you don't know all these things, ChatGPT can be a disaster. You may think that it's great. It could be a shortcut because, hey, I don't need to know anything about negotiation. I can just use this cheat sheet called ChatGPT. That is a huge misunderstanding. What we have seen, though, is that if you're both an educated, skilled, experienced negotiator and you are utilizing ChatGPT and know how to use ChatGPT, that is really 2 + 2 that equals more than 4, because suddenly you are in a much, much stronger position. Same thing goes. We actually had some really great experienced negotiators on during our big tests globally that had no clue on how to use ChatGPT. And that was an equal disaster, because you may be a great negotiator, but if you don't know how to operate ChatGPT, you can't really utilize the benefit of ChatGPT either. So back to the question, what is one of the key things, the challenges? That is, you need to know how to negotiate before you start negotiating. And you also need how to utilize ChatGPT. Now, the great thing is learning to use ChatGPT is really not that hard. I mean, you can download chat sheets everywhere. We have created one how to utilize ChatGPT as well. So if you would like ours, it's absolutely free. You can just link me on LinkedIn and I will make sure that you get it, or you can just ask for it. And in my new book coming out here in October, we actually have a whole chapter on how to use ChatGPT in negotiations as well. But back to what I just said, it's really about being a skilled, educated negotiator before you start using ChatGPT. Well, what is interesting, actually, Giuseppe, looking at your background, I actually talked to a lot of procurement officers recently who said, well, it's lovely. We don't have to invest in training of our procurement staff anymore because now we have artificial intelligence. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, that is the biggest misunderstanding in the world. Back to what I just said, we still need to understand what is it we're trying to do before we start using AI. And that goes not only in negotiation, but all the other fields as well. Whatever research we're doing, we still need to understand what we're doing.
Fantastic. Perfect. Listen, let me have a quick look at some of the, you mentioned your book and I would like to come back on your book, but let's first, take some of the topic from the audience, right? Data and confidentiality topic. In a nutshell, ChatGPT will save all the conversations you have with it and store them as a chat history. It then uses this data to improve its language model. There is every chance that your conversation inquiry will be seen by some of the human trainer working behind the scene at OpenAI. Thank you, Matthias.
Is that a question or comment?
No, it's a comment. It's a comment, right? Okay, then let's see, we have another question. Any real-time use case example how to use ChatGPT for negotiation?
Yes, I personally, I use ChatGPT all the time. I actually wanted to use it, but let me share a very embarrassing story with you. And it's actually humiliating for myself, but I just use myself as a guinea pig here. I quite often every week receive questions about actually negotiation cases from my students or clients, right? So I am jumping in answering that. And I had a funny one a couple of weeks ago, and I answered it as I normally would. I think you should do this and that and whatever. And there were seven answers to this challenge my client had. And then I sent off those 7 answers to this challenge and was sitting there thinking, I think I did pretty well. And then I got this idea. Why don't I try to upload my client's challenge? Again, I did remove his name and stuff, but I uploaded my client's challenge to ChatGPT and asked ChatGPT to answer the same challenge, right? And you know what's the embarrassing part is, Giuseppe? ChatGPT came out with an answer that was way better than mine. Because as I said earlier, ChatGPT know who I am, so you can actually ask ChatGPT to act as Keld Jensen. So I went in there and said, ChatGPT, could you answer this negotiation challenge as Keld Jensen, understanding the concept of smartnership? And ChatGPT came out with a way more fulfilling answer than I did. And you know why? Because I'm a human being, Giuseppe. So I have to be honest, I'm a little bit lazy. So, I was thinking I could write a lot more to my clients, but this must be sufficient, right? ChatGPT is not suffering from laziness. So ChatGPT is just throwing all the knowledge it got out there. So the answer from ChatGPT as acting as me was better than me acting as myself. And just to make this even more fun, Giuseppe, what I did then is I took the answer from ChatGPT and then I took my answers and then I sent it out without revealing which answers was from who. I sent it out to 62 people who know me really well. And then I asked them, could you pick the answer that is from me and the answer to this negotiation challenge that is from ChatGPT? And you know what's funny, Giuseppe? 58 of the 62 people picked the wrong one. They thought that the great answer was from ChatGPT. From me, but in reality, it was from ChatGPT. So ChatGPT can actually behave better than me as me, which is the embarrassing part. That's a kind of a real life story, how you can use ChatGPT to prepare yourself for a negotiation.
Wow. Amazing. That's very interesting, right? That's very interesting. Okay. What about cultural difference with AI as one use? Which AI as one use it? Which AI as one use it? Okay.
Yeah, I think you just answered that as a question about culture, because we had an interesting discovery around culture as well, and this is actually interesting, Giuseppe, because we discovered, this is a little bit scary, that the same question to ChatGPT would generate different answers in different languages. So, for instance, if you ask a question in English, you got one answer. If you ask that same exact questions in Turkish, you could get a different outcome. And if you ask the same question in Italian, you could get a third outcome. So don't ask me why, because I'm not part of OpenAI, but ChatGPT actually gave different answers to the same problem in different languages, which blows my mind. I don't understand how that is happening. It's not directly related to culture, but indirectly it is, because if you are sitting in Malaysia, you might be getting a different answer to a negotiation challenge than if you're sitting in Southern California, where I am right now, which is obviously a little bit scary on one hand. And I don't know whether it's purposely conducted like that from ChatGPT, because they're thinking there's a cultural difference in how we should behave. But talking about that, a lot of people are saying AI cannot simulate human emotions. And that's true, it can't. But we've actually conducted lots of research on how we can utilize ChatGPT on emotions. And you can. Because, for instance, you could sit with ChatGPT and put in there and saying, I'm negotiating with this counterpart from Nigeria. He's behaving this way. He's acting that way. I have this sensation about him. What should I do? And then ChatGPT will come back and give you answers. If you're negotiating with a Nigerian counterpart that behaved that way, perhaps you should do this and that. Now, I have to put out another warning besides be sure not to upload confidential information. The other warning is ChatGPT is lying once in a while, okay? That's also why I'm saying you have to be a skilled, educated negotiator before you start using tools like ChatGPT. Otherwise, you don't know what's right and wrong. And sometimes ChatGPT is just having a complete brain explosion, and it's just putting something out there that is absolutely ridiculous. To give you a very quick example of that as well, Giuseppe, I was recently sitting and I was asking, how many books have this author? My question was, give me the names of the 5 books this author has written. And the ChatGPT came up with 5 titles. The problem is, Giuseppe, that this author has only written 4 books. But ChatGPT is so focused on being service-minded, so it's thinking, oh, he wants 5 titles, so I just make up the 5th one. Now, if I ask the question differently, how many books have this author actually written? Then ChatGPT would come out and give me the 4 titles. So once in a while, ChatGPT is lying big time.
It's great stories. But let's go to a more serious kind of topic, right? Because one of your claim is indeed, that you have a strategy which is the most awarded strategy in the world. So, strategy is really your core competence. And there is, Patrick, by the way, is also a very, very experienced negotiator. And the question is, what do you define when you talk about negotiation strategy? Can you clarify maybe to the people in the audience what you mean, so that we have people on the same page?
Absolutely. A negotiation, just like an individual, needs to understand how they want to negotiate. And what I'm always doing when I'm stepping into a new client is I'm asking the top executive, could you please explain your official negotiation strategy? And most of the time, Giuseppe, but I'm sure if you ask the same question with your client, you will get the same reply. Most of the time, they are absolutely quiet. And sometimes they goes, because there isn't one. If I ask them if they have a sales strategy, a go-to-market strategy, a communication strategy, or HR strategy, oh, they all got it. They can bring out the binders and show you a complete list of all the strategies. So a strategy on negotiation is basically, how do we want to embrace negotiation? And the first question is, do we want to go in positional negotiation, or do we want to go into collaborative negotiation? Another thing we need to know is the list of variables. What is negotiable? A variable could be delivery time, terms of payment, warranty period, education, you name it. We have hundreds and hundreds of variables. A third one could be, do we want to share information, or to what degree do you want to share information, or don't we want to share info to the counterpart? We also need to understand what is it that we want to negotiate and what is it we don't want to negotiate. So there's actually a complete 9-step plan that you have to focus on to create a strategy. Now, an organization shouldn't have just one strategy. And by the way, I'm no expert in telling every organization what strategy they should embrace, because obviously they're the expert in their own industry. I can just tell them we need a strategy on how to negotiate, just like any other strategy. And what is funny, Giuseppe, is that sometimes I walk into procurement and they are working in absolutely positional zero-sum negotiation, and then I cross the hall and walk into the sales department that want to do absolutely completely collaborative negotiation. And none of them knows what the other one is doing, because it's not an official strategy. It's really down to the individual or just the department. So when you ask them, why do you conduct negotiation this way? Quite often I just get the answer, well, we've always done it this way. And nobody's really been thinking about why they are choosing this method. So we have created something called the SAM model, the Strategy Assessment Matrix. And imagine for a second that we're standing here with a quadrant, right? And we have a horizontal line and a vertical line. Now, the horizontal line down here will show you how important you are to the counterpart. The vertical line will show you how important the counterpart might be to you. Now, can we all agree that if both parties are really important to each other, we go up to the top right corner? That means both parties are really important to each other. If we are up there, and I'm sorry to be very direct, it is absolutely stupidity not working in a collaborative mode up here. That is what we call smartmanship. On the other hand, if both parties are really not important to each other, you are down here, right? That's a commodity market. The counterpart is not important to you. You are not important to the counterpart. You might be in a market with hundreds and hundreds of clients and hundreds of suppliers. Well, you should purposely then pick a positional, more zero-sum orientated negotiation approach. But the scary part here, Giuseppe, is many organizations haven't even started thinking about what is the counterpart? What is it we want to achieve? How important might they be? How important are we to them? And I know it sounds so basic, but they just attack the same problem with the same tools all the time. And that could either be positional or in a very collaborative mode. And I'm not saying collaborative is always better than more zero-sum. It is not. In some cases, obviously, I'm sure you would agree with me, we need to negotiate in a very positional approach. But it's something we have to define. So strategy work is more important than just diving into a workshop. And I see, unfortunately, too many of our colleagues out there just saying, oh, we just need to run a 2-day workshops on negotiation, and then this organization is up and running and ready to negotiate. I'm sorry again for my language. That's a load of BS, because the organization have to identify How do we want to negotiate? And you probably know the phrase that water runs downwards, right? So we have to start from the top. It is the C-suite that have to understand how important negotiation is for the organization, and then implement those thoughts throughout the organization before we start doing anything else.
Wow. Okay, listen, and we are touching also in general negotiation topics. I know that you're about to publish another book in a few weeks. I mean, can our audience learn a bit more on these topics in your book? Also, you mentioned that there is a chapter on ChatGPT. I mean, can you tell us what can we learn from this?
Sure.
And maybe I will ask you the title. I can put it also on the chat. If you mention the title, then we can put it on the chat, and then it will be easy also for participants, to go and check it out on Amazon.
Sure, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, the title is Negotiation Essentials, and that is really what the book is. It is a book where we have been very ambitious, and by saying me, it's both the publisher, McGraw Hill here in the US, and myself and my team, where we really try to pinpoint everything that is essential about negotiation. And let me be honest, Giuseppe, we failed because you can't. You can't just buy one book on negotiation, read that, and think you're done. I can only recommend that people are not only buying my book, but other books as well. You need a complete compendium of a series of books that cover everything, because one book can't cover everything, obviously not. Our angle into negotiation is covering AI, the use of AI in negotiation. It is covering the philosophy of negotiation economics, as I just mentioned, identifying those potential up to 42%. It is embracing the philosophy about creating a strategy in your organization. It is focusing on the 10 phases. We have identified 10 phases in a negotiation: pre, during, and post-negotiation. It is focusing on the gender questions, because there's a big difference between men and women negotiating. And I have found very clearly that one gender is superior to the other one. So you can sit there and think about that. Then we're focusing on international negotiation, back to the culture aspect as well. And we also dedicated a whole chapter on when you think you're about to lose a negotiation that you're not aware that you're about to lose, and what you can do to switch that around. So that's some of the main topics that we're covering in the book. And it's coming out, it's going to be released internationally on October 24th. Sorry, and should be widely available from November 4th. So if you do like this book, please go and pre-order. I would love it, because we are chasing the ambition about becoming a New York bestseller in this one. Giuseppe, I've published a range of books before. And I actually read my first book on negotiation that was published in 1998. It feels like a long time ago. That was when I was living back in Denmark. I published that book in Denmark. And I reread that book very recently. And you know what happened, Giuseppe? I felt that was the most terrible book I've ever read on negotiation. I felt it was miserable. And hopefully it wasn't that bad in 1998. But rereading it in 2022 made me realize that negotiation is a moving target. It is changing over all the time. Now, I said earlier when we started, we haven't really developed negotiation since 1773. That's our mindset on how we actually negotiate. But obviously, we suddenly, since 1998, we are negotiating virtually. We're negotiating by email. Now we have ChatGPT. And obviously, we have, from a psychology and communication point of view, evolved as well. So some of the advices that we were giving in the 80s and the 90s and even the 2020 is not even valid today, because as I said, it is a moving target. So back to what I said, I would strongly recommend that everybody listening in and want to improve on their negotiation skills, pick several books to read. And hopefully, and you are very welcome to pick mine as well. I actually think, and I'm quite honest, I'm not here to sell, but I think it's actually coming out as a really good book.
Fantastic. And by the way, apart from Negotiation Essential that I'm just putting in the chat right now, which is another book that is particularly, you publish 24 books, that's quite amazing. I mean, out of those 24, which is another one which is close to your heart for people that want to read some more?
Yeah, there's another one called the Trust Factor that was published by Palgrave. that is really focusing on what we talked about earlier, the trust currency part. So how trust can actually have a financial impact on negotiation. Now, in Negotiation Essential, the new one coming out, we are discussing trust as well. But the trust factor is one that really focuses on trust. And it's actually funny because if we go back to the 90s and the 20s to early 2000s and 2010, trust was still something. When I was out doing keynotes or advisory or running workshops and introduced the concept of trust, I could see a lot of people were sitting there going, he's a little bit naive, isn't he? I mean, trust and negotiation, how are they related? But I think time is changing, and I can feel today there's a way more and bigger and better understanding of the impact of trust. And I think it's all from society and politics and business and ethics and greed and what have you, that suddenly make people realize that trust is important. Let me just share one study from the book as well. We actually identified that if you have a trusted supplier compared to a non-trusted supplier, and I'm generalizing, we can see that clients are typically willing and able to pay up to 38% more just based on trust. Now, it varies obviously from industry to industry, product to product, but up to 38% more just based on I trust, I like, I have a relationship, compared to this one, I don't trust, I don't like, I don't have a relationship. So talking about trust currency, there's a lot of value in trust.
Fantastic. Thank you, Keld. I put the name, so the title of your book in the chat so that people can see it. Now, going back to, there are so many questions, we're not going to be able to cover them all, but just maybe a topic we already touched, but I think we can be a bit more specific on this one. If people want to use how to better use ChatGPT for negotiation, what is a resource? You mentioned that you have a document which teaches how to make the prompts. That's right?
Yes. I created a cheat sheet for our simulations, and if people have an interest in getting that, they can just connect with me on LinkedIn and ask for that. Just send me a note, and if you are connected to me already, just send me a note, and I'll be sure that my office will send it to you. So that's one option. I think if you just Google it, there's actually a lot of great information out there, which is absolutely free already. And another method is actually just asking ChatGPT, how can I use you for negotiation? I mean, ChatGPT is actually quite helpful in explaining on how you can use ChatGPT as well. So I think there's a lot of good options out there. I also know our colleague, Shane Ray Martin, he has created I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Shane, here today, I apologize, but I think it's 100 prompts.
100 prompts, yeah.
That's really great work, Shane. So reach out to him as well if you want additional information from him. He's done an exceptional great work within that area. So there's a lot of potential. And as I said, Negotiation Essential is actually covering that in a chapter as well, how we can work efficiently with ChatGPT.
Fantastic. Very good. Alisa, hi Alisa. Is it possible to describe the mechanics of ChatGPT negotiations?
I think I need to understand that question a little bit more. The mechanics. If we're talking about the content, if we're talking about how to develop negotiation, ChatGPT, well, I think we all learned now that ChatGPT is not Google. ChatGPT and Google Bot and everything else is something completely different. Look at it as a very cheap, inexpensive assistant sitting next to you that knows a lot and can do it way faster than any human being. So for instance, I was sitting with a client just 2 days ago, Friday, and we got 5 proposals from suppliers, and I wanted to test that as well. So again, we eliminated confidential information, uploaded these PDF, and just asked ChatGPT to analyze and summarize the differences between the 5 proposals. I don't know, I wasn't tracking it, but I bet you in less than 40 seconds, we had a complete summarize of all 5 papers that ChatGPT was working on. I also tried to challenge it a bit, saying, so which of these 5 is the best one? and ChatGPT is very diplomatic. So it didn't come out and say, well, supplier number 2 is the best one. Instead, it came out and say, well, the benefit of 1 compared to 2 is this, and 2 compared to 1 is that. So it wasn't really useful just picking one. You have to actually still be human and picking your own proposal. But just talking about mechanics, it It is really a cool calculator that can just help you address and frame and getting your hands on data quite quickly. And the reason that I really like that is because what I see that most of us, including myself, obviously, is that human beings, we have a tough time handling too much data. We simply can't do it. And we get confused, we get stressed, and we just ignore facts in front of us because back to your next show, Giuseppe, we become very emotional and it has a stress effect on us. But ChatGPT is this wonderful tool that can just help us really eliminate what is not important and focus on the important part. I don't know whether that was a really good answer to that question, but that was the best I could deliver right now based on that.
Fantastic. When do you expect AI being at the stage where we'll enable it to finalize simple or even tough negotiation on their own? Automated decision making, removing the human from the equation.
Yeah, that's a great question. I've seen there's several companies out there. ChatGPT is just one solution out of many, and we're going to see a lot more coming out in short time. I know even before ChatGPT, we had companies who were created what they call autonomous negotiation tools, and they're out sharing the information that companies and suppliers prefer to negotiate with technology compared to human beings. Now, I've been teasing a little bit on that one because I'm not going to mention any names, but I think part of the reason that the suppliers choose to negotiate with technology instead of the buyers from that organization is because the buyers in that organizations are not pleasant and not very comfortable to deal with. So you would then pick technology. I would also question the use of technology to replace human beings anytime soon. Because back to what I said, relationship and trust carries an incredible value. And autonomous negotiation cannot do that. Now, back to my model, the SAM model, vertical horizontal line. If you're down here in a positional negotiation in a commodity market, please go ahead, use AI, remove human factors because we're just wasting our time down here. We can't create value. We don't want to create value. We just want to buy the cheapest office chair we can get on the market. So there you go, use AI. And it can do that already today. So AI can negotiate with AI and figure out the best solution. The second we move up to long-term relationship, and listen carefully, most business relationship are actually long-term. It's not just something we are doing right now. It's actually long-term. The majority of contract conducted today about services and not products anymore. So back to what I said earlier, we have evolved, right? So the important contract negotiations today is actually about services. We are selling knowledge to each other, and that is long-term. And the second we move into long-term, we can use a tool like ChatGPT to support us, but replacing ourselves with technology right now, that would be a mistake. I have a phrase to you, Giuseppe, that is that AI won't replace negotiators right now, but negotiators using AI will replace negotiators not using AI. So I think that's the truth we have to be aware of. I was actually just seeing, just to wrap this one up, I just saw a study last week here from the US that actually said that only 16% of professionals in the US are using ChatGPT or AI today. And I was actually shocked. I thought it would be a lot more, but when you're dived into something, you feel that everybody is focusing on it. So I can only say, and this is a general recommendation, get on the horse right now. I mean, if you are not ahead of AI, you're going to be behind. And it's really important to understand how this world is working.
Fantastic. Perfect. Listen, we got so many questions, but I think, our time is almost up, maybe too close. You recommended people to use AI, but should we let negotiators lose and go crazy using AI in negotiation, or what is the final piece of advice that you have for our audience?
Yeah, I love that question, Giuseppe. But no, I don't think we should. Back to what I've been saying repeatedly, we need a negotiation strategy. And AI, ChatGPT, whatever tool we're using, is part of that strategy. So it have to be organized, it have to be approved, we have to know what everybody's doing. So it have to be planned out. It have to be planned how we want to use it. Perhaps we even want to build a front in a company, use an API to connect with ChatGPT or other tools. So it even makes it easier for our staff to utilize ChatGPT in negotiation. So should we just go crazy? Absolutely not. It's fun to go crazy when you're playing around with it. When you're doing some serious stuff, you need to have some strategy behind it. So the quick answer to your question is no, we shouldn't do that.
Fantastic. Keld, it was so rich. I mean, there was so much content that you managed to put in 45 minutes. It's just amazing. Thank you for the audience, for all the comments, all the questions, and our apologies if we were not able to cover everything that you put in the chat. Having said that, thank you very much again to Keld. Thank you very much to all of you that are joining live or watching the recording. And let me just maybe remind people that have an interest in negotiation. We just mentioned how important the trust relationship are. So, the impact of emotions in negotiation is our next topic. So how about joining us, follow the link, and then, find out a bit more on this other fascinating topic. Keld, it was a true pleasure. Thank you very much. Such a rich event. Thank you for all of you for being in our audience, and look forward to reconnecting with you soon for another event.
Thank you, Giuseppe.
Thank you, Keld.